This is Clearview AI, the facial recognition software that is currently in use by hundreds of law enforcement agencies throughout the country and quite possibly the most dangerous tool in the Trump administration's arsenal. The software works by taking billions of images across the internet and using them to make positive identification matches to a given person, usually without anyone's consent or knowledge. The ACLU has sued the company for violating privacy laws on several occasions, and in 2022, they reached a settlement in which they agreed to restrict U.S. market sales of facial recognition services to government entities. Here is the company's CEO explaining how it works.
Right now we have, billions and billions of images from millions of different websites all across the open internet.
This is what Clearview AI's database would look like to law enforcement, says founder Wonton Tat, if, for example, they were searching for me.
I mean, I got to say, it's slightly unnerving seeing someone able to scroll through so many images of my face.
But you have to remember that this is only used for investigations after the fact. This is not a 24/7 surveillance system.
This leads us to the first problem with a closed system like Clearview AI: privacy. Does a company like Clearview, which is itself not a government agency, have the right to use our photos without our consent? Google, Facebook, and Instagram all have policies that prohibit the scraping of data from their websites. So is there legal standing for these companies to be held responsible for allowing this to happen? After discovering Clearview AI was scraping images from their site, Twitter sent a cease and desist letter to Clearview, insisting that they remove all images as scraping is against Twitter's policies. On February 5th and 6th, 2020, Google, YouTube, Facebook, and Venmo sent cease and desist letters as it is against their policies. The CEO responded in an interview that there is a First Amendment right to access public data. He later stated that Clearview has scraped over 50 billion images from across the web.
We have built our system is to only take publicly available information and index it that way.
And you believe you have a First Amendment right
Completely.
to access what's on the platform?
There are currently very few regulations in America, if any, that prevent a company like Clearview from undertaking this endeavor. However, it has led to fines and bans by EU nations for violating privacy laws.
In this statement, they issued a formal warning, calling on the US company to delete this database, accusing them of violating strict EU rules when it comes to data protection. The watchdog said in a statement that it had unlawfully processed tens of millions of photos from various French citizens, something that they said was particularly intrusive.
In 2020, a data breach of Clearview AI demonstrated 2,200 organizations in 27 countries had accounts with facial recognition searches, which leads us to the second issue with this system: security.
Now, what makes this company, the recent breach, and its technology particularly controversial as of late is that tech companies capable of releasing similar tools have refrained from doing so. Going back as far as 2011, Google's chairman at the time said it was one of the technologies the company has held back on because it could be used in a very bad way. Even large cities such as San Francisco and a few others have either actively barred police from using this technology or are thinking about doing it.
In April 2020, Mossab Hussain of Spider Silk, a security firm, discovered Clearview's source code. Repositories were exposed due to misconfigured user security settings. This included secret keys and credentials, including cloud storage and Slack tokens. The compiled apps and pre-release apps were accessible, allowing Hussain to run the macOS and iOS apps against Clearview's services. Hussain reported the breach to Clearview, but refused to sign a non-disclosure agreement necessary for Clearview's bug bounty program. They have also been found to have used unsecured Amazon S3 buckets uses app permissions to spy on their users, sent, and captures gallery photos and taken photos from the app itself. Clearview, at various times throughout 2020, has claimed 98.6%, 99.6%, or 100% accuracy. However, these results are from tests conducted by people affiliated with the company and have not used representative samples of the population. In October 2021, Clearview submitted its algorithm to one of two facial recognition accuracy tests conducted by the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, every few months. Clearview ranked amongst the top 10 of 300 facial recognition algorithms in a test to determine accuracy in matching two different photos of the same person, but did not submit to the NIST test for matching an unknown face to a 10 billion image database, which more closely matches the algorithm's intended purpose. This brings us to the third problem: accuracy. Clearview's algorithm is subject to the same errors that all vision models suffer from, namely racial bias in the training data. This means that people with darker skin tones are far more likely to trigger false positives than white people, and their system was even shown to have higher error rates for women than men.
Researchers like Joy Blomweeny have repeatedly found that certain groups tend to get excluded from the data that AI is trained on, putting them at a serious disadvantage.
With self-driving cars, when they tested pedestrian tracking, it was less accurate on darker-skinned individuals than lighter-skinned individuals.
Joy believes this bias is because of the lack of diversity in the data used in teaching AI to make distinctions.
As I started looking at the data sets, I learned that for some of the largest data sets that have been very consequential for the field, they were majority men and majority lighter-skinned individuals or white individuals. So I call this pale male data.
In 2021, Clearview announced that it was developing deblur and mask removal tools to sharpen blurred images and envision the covered part of an individual's face. These tools would be implemented using machine learning models that fill in the missing details based on statistical patterns found in other images. Clearview acknowledged that deblurring an image and/or removing a mask could potentially make errors more frequent and would only be used to generate leads for police investigations. But the most dangerous use of Clearview AI would be for the current president and his cronies to take action against anyone who speaks out against them, including immigrants, lawyers, and protesters. The current administration has already shown a penchant for attacking political opponents and attempting to silence anyone it deems to be a threat. Thus, Clearview AI could be used to find individuals based on recorded images and prosecute them for protesting.
But we cannot allow the righteous cries and peaceful protesters to be drowned out by an angry mob. The biggest victims of the rioting are peace-loving citizens in our poorest communities. And as their president, I will fight to keep them safe. I will fight to protect you. I am your president of law and order and an ally of all peaceful protesters. But in recent days, our nation has been gripped by professional anarchists, violent mobs, arsonists, looters, criminals, rioters, Antifa, and others.
The company encouraged user adoption by offering free trials to law enforcement officers rather than departments as a whole. The company additionally used its significant connections to the Republican Party to connect with police departments. The system is already being used by law enforcement agencies nationwide, with many agencies being given a discount to try out the software for themselves. In 2022, use of the facial recognition software grew rapidly in the United States when more than 1 million searches were conducted. In 2023, this usage doubled. The technology was used for identifying an individual at a May 30th, 2020 George Floyd police violence protest in Miami, Florida. Miami's WTVJ confirmed this, as the arrest report only said she was identified through investigative means. The defendant's attorney did not even know it was with Clearview that had been used to make the identification. Under the Trump administration, the United States is headed on the same path as China, where use of the social credit score is seen throughout daily life.
Is going to be less and less about public safety and more about controlling people. It's about social control.
I think the social credit system that China is using is absolutely awful. And the problem is that they're setting such a bad example for the rest of the world that everyone's turning their back against AI facial recognition.
But citizens there are fighting back, using low-tech means to attempt to disrupt the regime's efforts to gain complete control.
Things that seem like anti-surveillance actions that don't matter by yourself, when you hit a critical mass of people, it matters a lot. So everyone there decided they were all going to ignore mask laws. They all decided they were going to get out umbrellas. They all decided they were going to get out the laser pointers and point them at the cameras and try to disrupt the collection of that information of people next to them who maybe didn't have a mask or it was knocked off. And I think that kind of belief in your power, that even if you think it might not work 100% of the time, that all of you together have this tremendous power.
This is America. Do not comply. Resist.